Welcome to your deep dive. Today we're going to be looking at, those excerpts you shared from James Clear's Atomic Habits.
Oh, yeah.
We'll try to unpack the key ideas so you can, actually use them
Right.
to build those lasting positive changes in your life.
Yeah, Atomic Habits is, it's all about getting 1% better each day.
Okay.
It's a deceptively simple concept,
Right?
but it has really powerful implications.
That's what intrigued me too, right? It's not about some, intense, unsustainable overhaul, but like
Oh.
tiny tweaks that compound over time.
Yeah.
Clear's own story really drives this home, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
After a near-fatal accident in high school, Clear had to relearn, basic functions.
Oh, wow.
And his recovery was marked by, just tiny wins, consistently building on those small improvements.
And this experience ultimately led him to explore the power of habits, right?
Yes. Clear realized that, those tiny wins weren't just about physical recovery. They were really about the cumulative effect of making those consistent choices.
Okay.
And that's really a core principle of habit formation.
So how do we actually go from, like, I want to change to embedding those changes
Right.
in our daily lives?
Okay.
Clear mentions a habit loop.
Right.
What's that all about?
Think of it like a cycle
Right.
with 4 parts. Cue,
Okay.
craving, response, and reward.
Oh, okay.
Each stage is essential for a habit to really, take hold.
Okay. Break it down for me.
Sure.
What's a cue in this context?
A cue is simply a trigger
Okay.
that sets the habit in motion, right?
Yeah.
It could be like a specific time of day, a location,
Right.
even an emotional state.
Right.
Let's say your cue is
Yeah.
walking into your kitchen after work.
And that leads to the craving, I imagine.
Right. The cue triggers a desire.
Okay.
In this case, maybe it's a craving for something sweet
Right.
or a desire to unwind.
So I see the cookies on the counter,
Mm.
and suddenly my brain's all, sugar time.
Exactly. And that craving leads to the response, which is the actual habit.
Okay.
So you grab a cookie and eat it.
The satisfying part. But there's more to it than just the cookie itself, isn't there?
That's where reward comes in.
Okay.
The reward is the feeling or the outcome you get from the habit.
Okay.
Maybe it's the taste of the cookie, the feeling of fullness,
Right.
or even just the temporary relief from stress.
And that reward then reinforces the entire loop,
Yes.
making you more likely to reach for a cookie
Right.
the next time you walk into the kitchen after work.
Exactly. The key takeaway here is that each stage of this loop is interconnected.
I see.
Understanding how cues, cravings, responses, and rewards interact
Oh.
gives you the power to really change your habits.
What's fascinating is that we probably go through this loop countless times a day
Yes.
without even realizing it.
That's why awareness is so important. Claire
Yeah.
talks about creating a habit scorecard.
Like a checklist.
It's more like an inventory. Write down everything you do in a day.
Oh, wow.
Then mark each item as a positive, negative, or neutral habit.
Okay, so grabbing that afternoon coffee,
Yeah.
neutral.
Right.
Hitting the gym,
Right.
definitely positive.
Okay.
That endless scrolling before bed, yeah, that's going in the negative column.
Right. The scorecard helps you see where you're already succeeding and where there's room for improvement.
Okay.
It's about understanding your existing patterns
Yeah.
before you try to change them.
That makes sense. It's hard to break a habit if you don't even realize you're doing it.
Exactly.
But let's say I've identified some habits I want to change.
Right.
How do I make those changes stick? Where do I even begin?
Clee suggests starting with a shift in mindset.
Okay.
He emphasizes the importance of identity-based habits.
So it's not just about doing the action. It's about
yeah,
becoming the kind of person who does that action consistently.
precisely.
Okay.
Instead of, I want to exercise more, it becomes, I am an active person. Instead of, I'm trying to eat healthier, it's, I am a healthy eater.
That's an interesting reframing.
Right.
Does simply changing how we think about ourselves
Yeah.
really impact our behavior?
Research shows it can.
Right.
Think of it this way. Your actions reinforce your identity,
Okay.
and your identity shapes your future actions.
So by aligning our actions with our desired identity,
Yes.
we're actually reinforcing that identity.
Exactly. It's like a feedback loop.
Okay.
The more you act in alignment with a certain identity,
Uh-huh.
the more you believe it to be true,
Right.
which then makes you more likely to continue acting in that way.
This is all starting to click.
Yeah.
Now, it's not just willpower or forcing ourselves to do things we hate.
Right.
It's about aligning our habits with who we believe ourselves to be.
And that's where things get really interesting.
There you go.
Click offers a whole toolbox of practical strategies to help us make those changes.
Right.
Strategies that go beyond simple willpower.
That's what I'm here for.
Mm-hmm.
Before we dive into those, let's take a moment to reflect on what we've covered so far.
Okay.
We've got the powerful idea of small changes compounding over time.
Right.
The 4 stages of the habit loop.
Uh-huh.
And this fascinating concept of identity-based habits.
Yes.
All incredibly insightful stuff.
It is. And remember, these are just the building blocks.
Right.
We'll be exploring specific strategies and techniques in just a moment.
Okay.
So you can start putting these ideas into action in your own life.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
All right, let's jump back into those practical strategies for, actually building better habits.
Right.
I'm ready to go from theory to action.
That's where the real magic happens.
Yeah.
Clear offers a variety of techniques in Atomic Habits.
Oh.
And, we can explore which ones might work best for you.
Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So we've already talked about identifying our existing habits with that habit scorecard.
Right.
What comes next?
Let's talk about implementation intentions.
Okay.
It's about creating a clear plan for when and where you'll do a new habit. Okay.
So instead of just, I'll meditate more, specify, I'll meditate for 5 minutes each morning right after I brush my teeth.
So it's about, removing the decision-making from the moment.
Exactly.
Building that action into my routine.
Yes.
Makes sense, but what if even starting is hard?
That's where the 2-minute rule comes in handy.
Okay.
The idea is to make starting a new habit ridiculously easy.
Okay.
Break it down to, a tiny action you can do in under 2 minutes.
So instead of a 30-minute workout, it's just putting on my exercise clothes.
Exactly.
Or instead of writing a chapter,
yeah,
I just open my laptop and write 1 sentence.
Exactly. It's about building momentum.
Right.
Often, once you've taken that first step,
yeah,
it's easier to just, keep going.
I can see how that would be less intimidating. No more staring at a blank page or feeling overwhelmed by, a long workout.
Exactly.
What other tactics does Clear recommend?
Well, he emphasizes that our environment can either, help or hinder our habits.
It's about making cues for good habits obvious.
Okay.
And removing triggers for, bad ones.
So if my goal is to eat healthier, maybe I swap the candy dish on the counter for a bowl of fruit.
Yes.
Make the healthy choice the easy choice.
Precisely. And the same principle applies to other habits.
Okay.
Want to read more? Keep a book on your bedside table.
Okay.
Want to learn guitar? Leave it out in the living room where you'll see it every day.
It's like setting yourself up for success.
Yeah.
By designing your surroundings to support your goals.
Exactly.
I like that. But what about motivation? We all have days when we just don't feel like it.
Well, Clear reminds us that relying solely on motivation is a recipe for inconsistency.
Right.
Discipline is what really matters.
Okay.
Professionals stick to the schedule even when they're not feeling it.
But isn't that easier said than done?
Of course, it takes practice.
Right.
But there are strategies to help.
Okay.
One is to focus on making the process itself enjoyable.
Okay.
Find a workout buddy, listen to music while you work, or, celebrate small wins along the way.
So it's about finding ways to make those repetitions less tedious and more engaging.
Exactly.
Instead of dreading my daily writing time,
Yeah.
I could look forward to, experimenting with different genres or styles.
Exactly. And as you get better at something,
Uh-huh.
the process itself becomes more rewarding.
We've covered so much ground already. The habit scorecard, implementation intentions, the 2-minute rule, environment design,
Yeah.
making it enjoyable, focusing on discipline.
Uh-huh.
Anything else we should touch on?
Let's talk about rewards.
Okay.
Cleary highlights the importance of making good habits satisfying.
Right.
It taps into our brain's natural reward system.
I'm all for that. What kind of rewards work best?
It's personal.
Okay.
Maybe it's a relaxing bath after a workout,
Okay.
a new book after hitting your writing goal,
Right.
or even just that feeling of accomplishment from checking off a task on your to-do list.
The key is to find rewards that are meaningful and motivating for you. It shouldn't feel like a chore.
Exactly. And ideally, the reward should align with your overall goals.
Right.
If you're trying to save money, don't reward yourself with a shopping spree.
That would defeat the purpose. Okay, rewards check, but what about accountability?
Right.
We all need a little nudge sometimes.
Clear is a big advocate for accountability.
Okay.
It could be as simple as, telling a friend about your goal.
Right.
Or joining a group with, similar interests.
There's power in knowing someone else is cheering you on.
Right. He also mentions habit contracts,
Okay.
which are, more formal agreements with specific consequences for not following through.
Like putting some skin in the game?
Exactly. It's about creating external motivators
Okay.
to support your internal commitment.
Wow. This is quite a toolkit we've unpacked.
It is.
From small steps to big mindset shifts.
Yeah,
It feels like there's something here for everyone.
absolutely. And there's one more concept from Atomic Habits that's crucial for long-term success. Okay.
Something Clear calls the Goldilocks zone.
Ooh, intriguing. Tell me more.
We'll dive into the Goldilocks zone and how it relates to habit formation right after this short break.
Okay.
This will give you a chance to reflect on everything we've covered so far
Sounds good.
and think about which strategies you might want to try.
Okay, so we're back and ready to explore that Goldilocks zone. You mentioned it sounds like something out of a fairy tale.
It does have kind of a whimsical name, right?
Yeah.
But it's rooted in a really powerful principle.
Yeah.
Finding that right level of challenge.
So it's not just about picking, any habit,
Right.
but finding one that's challenging enough
Yeah.
to keep us engaged,
Uh-huh.
but not so difficult that we just, get discouraged and give up.
Exactly. Clear argues that we experience peak motivation when we're working on tasks that are just outside of our current comfort zone.
That makes sense. If something is too easy, it gets boring.
Right.
But if it's too hard, we're likely to, just give up.
So it's about finding that sweet spot, that perfect balance of skill and challenge.
Think of it like a video game.
Okay.
It needs to be challenging enough to keep you hooked,
Right.
but not so difficult that it becomes frustrating.
Okay. I can see the analogy, but how do we actually find that Goldilocks zone
Yeah.
when it comes to building habits?
It starts with choosing habits that align with your natural interests and abilities.
Okay.
If you're genuinely interested in something,
Right.
you're more likely to find the motivation to stick with it, even when it gets tough.
So if someone hates running, forcing themselves to train for a marathon is probably not setting them up for success,
Right.
even if it's, technically a good habit.
Precisely. And once you've chosen a habit that's a good fit,
Right.
it's important to gradually increase the difficulty as you progress.
Okay.
Start small and slowly expand your comfort zone, always pushing yourself just a little bit further.
Kind of like building muscle, but for our habits.
That's-
So maybe I start with walking for 15 minutes a day,
Yeah,
then gradually increase the distance or the pace.
exactly. Clear uses the example of Michael Phelps to illustrate this. Phelps's, unique body type gave him this natural advantage in swimming. He found his Goldilocks zone and then just relentlessly pursued excellence within that zone, constantly pushing his limits.
It's a reminder that we all have our own unique strengths and interests.
Right.
The key is to find habits that align with those strengths
Yeah.
and then challenge ourselves to grow within those areas.
Yeah.
But let's face it, even with the perfect habit and the right level of challenge, we all face those moments of boredom or, a lack of motivation.
Of course.
How do we overcome those inevitable slumps?
That's where discipline really comes in.
Okay.
Successful people don't rely solely on those, bursts of motivation.
Right.
They cultivate the discipline to show up consistently, even when it's not exciting.
But isn't it normal to have days when we just don't feel like it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But Clear challenges us to kind of, reframe our thinking. He says we need to fall in love with boredom,
All right.
not in a literal sense, of course,
Right.
but in the sense of embracing the repetitive nature of habit formation.
So instead of viewing those repetitions as a chore,
Uh-huh.
we can see them as, opportunities for growth and refinement.
Exactly.
Each time I sit down to write,
Mhm.
it's a chance to hone my craft,
Yes.
to explore new ideas, to become, a better writer.
Exactly. And as you become more consistent with your habits, you'll start to experience those, intrinsic rewards of progress,
Right.
which can further fuel your motivation.
It's like a positive feedback loop, right? The more we do something, the better we get at it.
Yeah.
The more enjoyable it becomes, the more likely we are to, just stick with it.
And here's another, important point.
Okay.
We don't have to be perfect.
Okay.
In fact, trying to be perfect can actually be counterproductive.
Because it sets the bar impossibly high,
Yeah,
making us more likely to give up when we inevitably, stumble.
exactly. Clears encourages us to focus on consistency over perfection.
Yeah.
It's about making progress, not about being flawless.
It's a reminder that setbacks are a normal part of the process.
Right.
The key is to not let those, slip-ups derail us entirely.
Yeah.
We can learn from our mistakes and get back on track.
Absolutely.
This has been such an insightful deep dive.
It has.
Clear's framework of tiny changes, the habit loop, the Goldilocks zone, it really resonates.
It's been a pleasure exploring these ideas with you. Remember, building better habits is a journey, not a destination.
And as James Clear reminds us, success is the product of daily habits, not once-in-a-lifetime transformations. So think about a habit you've been wanting to build. What's one small step you can take today to make it more obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying? We hope this deep dive has given you the tools and the inspiration to get started. Thanks for joining us.